just the frames. Got keys to kingdom, unlocking chains. Sober the podcast, open up your brains. Sober the podcast, let's get it, man.
Welcome back to another episode of Sober the Podcast with your host, Bradley Saxon, CJ Carlton.
Yo, what up?
And we got a Floridian. Is that how you say it? How do you say how do you say F-O? Say it? Floridian. How about that? Miss Katie Allman.
Yep.
So good to have you.
Thank you.
And you've been listening to the podcast for a while, huh? You and your husband, Ernie.
Yep.
Shout out, Ernie.
Ernie.
He's actually in Florida weathering this storm, Milton, and we're praying for those guys. It's so devastating.
Yeah.
But we know in our recovery, we've learned, man, that storms could be weathered, and God is with us even in the midst of that. So
that's right.
We're praying for those and sending some love to your husband, but we're so glad you're up here. You're here for a reunion from a facility you went through over a decade ago, right?
Yes, correct.
How about that?
11 years ago. Yeah.
11 years ago. That's pretty cool. So
Yeah.
before we get started with our three-pointer, which is our icebreaker, tell the listeners how long you struggled with alcohol and drug addiction.
Probably 10 years.
10
I was
years.
deep in it,
Stole like 10 years. That's crazy.
It is.
Because a decade is gone before we even know it.
Right.
You know? And tell the listeners how long you've been sober?
11 years.
What was the exact day? I know it was here recently, right? Within the last few months?
May 10th.
May the 10th, 11 years. Come on, let's give her some love. That's pretty cool. I mean, obviously, that's an accomplishment in our lives that only God can really do.
That's
you
right.
know? All right, that's cool. So before we get started, what we're going to do is what we call a three-pointer.
Yep.
We usually ask questions or we play songs, let the listener pick the right artist or pick the song, and then at the end of the show, you'll get a chance to shoot the basket, however many questions you get, and then if you can make a shot, you can pick whatever you want in the merchandise.
Okay.
Now, Katie has decided that she wants to go with the songs. And so we're going to jump in on 90s hip-hop and just see how gangsta.
Yeah.
That just sounds gangsta, though, how gangsta she is, which I have a feeling that she's probably going to get all these right. There's no problem.
She's probably going to be
I hope.
All right, you ready?
Ready.
We're going to start a little bit easy.
Biggie.
Yeah. Do you know what song it is? Give you a little hit.
Problems? What is it?
Yeah, More Money, More
Dang.
Problems.
More money, more problems.
She owned it.
Yeah, she knew it.
Yep.
She didn't even hear one lyric.
She said,
Biggie.
problems.
Yeah. All right. Let's see what else we got. I'm gonna save the last one to be a little hard.
All right.
Okay. What's his name?
I'll give you the first name. You tell the last name. Vanilla.
Ice.
Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
Now that's actually early, probably
That's-
90s.
Yeah.
That's real early 90s.
That might be 80s.
No, maybe. No, it ain't 80s.
John said, nah, that's 90s.
That's the 90s. John
He said, I was
90s.
here for it.
He said I lived for it.
I was 2.
All right, last one. I say it's hard, but it really ain't.
Regulator.
Yeah, come on, man.
She even said
4G.
it. She said regulators.
Yeah, but I mean, this is telling my age, but I remember going to Rainbow Records and you could buy a tape that was a single.
That trips me out
Yep.
every time you
I
say
remember.
that.
How old was you in 1990?
I don't know, it depends, because I was born in 1990.
That's so crazy to me.
Yeah.
But you could go and buy it for $3. It's in like a little paper case. And that was this song you could get. And then he had another song called This DJ, which I thought was a lot better than that song. But anyway, she got all three right. So at the end, you get a chance to do a shot, right? So let's get into what the people wanting to hear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because what I've realized in doing this season is that there is power in a testimony.
Yeah.
Like there are people that have no hope that listen to this podcast looking to identify with somebody that's been where they've been.
That's right.
Because in any struggle, and I don't know if y'all can relate to this, but any struggle that I've had in my life, the first thing that helps me accept it or to become comfortable with talking about it is realizing somebody else has struggled the way I have. You know, because at first when I was trying to get sober, I felt like maybe I'm the only one like this.
It feels like that.
Right.
You know, but when you, and that's why I think what we do is so powerful, because the greatest bond is the bond of suffering. And when you bring people together that share in a common peril, like there's some type of power to that, right? And so I think there's people, man, that we wouldn't even know that listen, that could probably still be drinking and using. You know, looking for some type of hope or something to shake in their life. And I think we all can relate to that person because we've all been on that side.
Right.
Because, I mean, we talk about what God has done, right? And we've got 11 years, 19 years, 7 years. But, like, that ain't the way it's always been. You know? And so a lot of the way that we frame this up is we usually talk in a general way what it was like in addiction. And let's be honest, man. Like, when we talk about addiction, there was a great problem being developed in our life way before we probably picked up a drink or a drug, right? So tell us a little bit about your childhood. Like, were you born in Florida? You was? You were?
Yeah,
What
born-
part of Florida?
Orlando, born and raised.
So you were born and raised in Orlando. Tell us a little bit about, like, that family life and that home life.
I came from a really loving home. I am the youngest of, I have 2 older sisters, so I'm the youngest girl. And when I share my story, I always talk about, like, I never felt like I fit in with my sisters. Like, I would ask my mom, like, am I adopted? Like, I just did not fit in with them, but I didn't realize, you know, it was like my thinking. And when, you know, my parents listened to my story, and I remember my mom asking me, like, when you say that, was it because, like, you know, you didn't feel loved? And I was like, no, like, not at all. Like, I just didn't feel, you know, like I fit in with them. So I had a really good upbringing. My dad was in the Air Force. He is a retired air traffic controller. And my mom, she had like a part-time job working for one of the churches. And so she pretty much, you know, was home with us a lot. He worked long hours. So yeah, I mean, I did good in school. You know, I was athletic. I stayed busy. Grew up in church, Baptist. I was raised Baptist.
I was. I think, was you raised?
Baptist-costal.
Yeah, it was Baptist.
Yeah, Baptist-costal for sure.
Yeah.
Which
so-
has its pros and cons.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
For sure.
But like, I wasn't ready. Like, we went to church on Wednesdays and Sundays, you know, like I wasn't ready. You know, I was baptized, I think, when I was 10. So yeah, I mean,
Just sort of routine. This is what you did.
yeah.
Especially from the South.
Yeah.
You went to church every time the doors were open. You prayed the sinner's prayer. You got baptized.
Sang the hymns.
Yep. Sing hymns and feel guilty all week and then try to get saved again the next Sunday.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
I got saved like 78,000 times.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Probably
yeah.
every day.
Yeah.
What sports did you play?
I did volleyball, basketball, track. I did crew whenever I was in high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
What is that?
Where you row the boat.
Rowing.
Really?
Crew, yeah.
Oh, you have to be a beast to do that.
I
bro.
love that. I'm a water baby. Like, I love being on the water.
Yeah,
So
we
did-
see you all the time on Facebook holding all kind of fish, and fish I don't even know was in the water. You know what I'm saying? Like, look at that orange fish you just caught, man.
Probably
That's
a
pretty neat.
hogfish, yeah.
That's pretty cool.
So did you do crew in rivers? Like, is that where you did
Yeah,
it? Like in the
like-
river?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Lakes. We practice on the lake.
I got
But
you.
I liked it because we got to go
but it's
swimming.
competitive. Like you race against other people.
Yeah.
That's really
We
cool.
traveled, yeah.
I don't think they did that in South Carolina, did they?
Not that I know of.
No.
Yeah.
No, I don't think. Well, I mean, unless you're gonna race in Lake Hartwell.
Yeah. I've never seen it.
Neither.
I ain't either.
That's
Yeah.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
So you really early life just pretty normal.
Yeah.
You
Pretty
know,
normal.
other than this identifying thing that you said that I feel like everybody under the sound of our voice can understand, which is this, I feel very uncomfortable in my skin.
Absolutely.
And it's amazing how you don't have to teach us that.
Right.
Like we're born with
Yep.
it. You know, and it's funny that your mom asked you that question because my mom listens to my story and then she calls me.
Yeah.
And she's asking questions and I was like, Mom, like, it really never had anything to, like, you couldn't have done enough
Yeah.
to fix that.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, I didn't understand that at the time. Maybe I got bitter at them because I felt like they might have not, you know, used it to my advantage.
Yeah.
But now looking back, I mean, you could have did everything 10 times.
Yeah.
And I would have still felt
It would have been enough.
unloved.
Yeah.
Would you identify with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when did you really get introduced to drugs and alcohol?
The first thing I did was drink, and I was in middle school. It was at a friend's house, and her parents had liquor. So, like, and I remember, I think you just shared, like, I felt that, like, warm sensation. I felt normal, you know, like, but I didn't struggle with it till, like, my later years. But, like, I drank, I smoked weed in high school. That's when I started smoking weed. And then I ended up meeting a guy whenever I was in high school. And like you just shared, like I felt like that was like my first addiction. Like it was toxic, it was abusive. And I was so young, I think I was like 14. And I didn't know, you know, like I didn't know, like he came from a rough upbringing and like I thought I was gonna like save him and help him and, you know, but like I was the one that needed
Needed
the
the help.
saving and yeah. I mean, I remember sneaking out in high school. No, actually, middle school was the first time I snuck out. I got caught. I left the screen off the window, and we were going to church. And my dad was like, "Why is the screen off your window?" And
Got
I was
'em.
like, "Yep."
Got him.
Yeah, that's
Yep.
you know,
Yeah.
that's where your heart falls out your rear
Yeah.
end because you
Yeah.
know, like
I was
he
think-
sees it on your face. You're
Yeah.
done. You're
Yeah.
done. You're about to get that
Yeah,
tail
you're done.
probably
Yeah.
beat.
Because I already know. I already know.
I
Yeah.
thought the whole church service of what I was gonna say.
There's no
Oh, that's
doubt.
even worse.
Yeah.
It's like when your mom says, when your daddy gets home today,
Oh,
I'm going to
yeah.
tell him, blah, blah,
Right.
blah. And so,
God.
like, you're waiting all day,
Right.
Dreading.
pulling
Right.
the bed back
Yeah.
against the wall so you can run back and forth while they're
Right.
trying to spank you, you know?
Right.
All these tactics.
Yeah. So that's what, like, I had, you know, my household, it was strict, but I do feel like that helped me, you know, not go off the chain like, you know, like I could have.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, like I often say too that my roots is what probably pulled me back at such a young age. That while there were things that, you know, like it helped me, like you're saying,
The
like
fear of
it is something that really, when it came time to grow up, really played a vital role.
Right.
I think it was easier for
Yeah.
me to get sober and start this relationship with God based on some of the things that I was, you know,
Yeah.
that I experienced
Yeah.
as a kid, that my parents put in place, that I
Yeah.
didn't understand then,
Yeah.
but after a while realized it really benefited me.
Yeah.
So, through high school, like you would drink and drug recreationally, like it was something that.
I mean, I smoked weed every day in high school. Yeah.
Did it affect anything, like as far as just like your ability to play sports, or was it
No.
just something where
Yeah.
like this is fun?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is great.
Yep.
And I'm still doing
It
the
took me
things
out
that.
of reality.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Did your parents know? Like, did
No.
you? Really?
Yeah. No.
Dang.
No. They
That's
didn't.
crazy.
I know.
You must have been good. You must have some good eye drops too.
Yeah, I had good eye drops. Yeah,
There's
I
no
remember.
doubt.
I remember. I came home and I had a friend sleeping over, and we were so high. And I remember there being a cockroach, and I had to get my dad. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, he's gonna know. I'm
Yeah.
high. But like, he didn't. Like, I was just trying to look down and not look at him.
Oh yeah.
Bro, it's so funny
Yeah.
how when we're high, we think everybody knows we're high.
Yeah.
I'm
And
And
like-
sometimes they do.
Like
There's no
dad's just
way.
in there chilling, watching a movie, hanging
Yeah.
out. Like,
Well, I
yeah.
used to. It's funny because our stories are a little different there. Because my dad actually sold weed my whole life, but he never really wanted me to know. But always felt like when I smelt that smell, that it was just like some kind of fragrance my mom was putting around the house because it always was around. But I remember coming through many a nights in high school, and dude, I mean, who cares about eye drops? Like I'm walking in and I'm freaking like hammered.
Yeah.
And he don't say nothing, but like he knows.
Yeah.
You know, and
Oh,
so
yeah.
one day it's funny because where you hid it from your parents, my dad tried to get involved with me to keep me from
Right.
going too
Something
far.
harder. Yeah.
Yeah, because one day he was like, boy, you think you know something about weed?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, I'm 16. I probably smoked only just like real Mexican pot. It's got a lot of seeds in it.
Yeah.
And like he handed me this joint, and I'm thinking, I'll take this to the head. Like
Right.
5 hours later, I
Glued.
got up out of the
Glued.
seat
Yeah,
because I was
glued.
glued, and
Yeah.
he watched me the whole time
Yeah.
laughing. You know, so it's funny how those two stories are different.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think I think it pays to have consistency with kids in a
Yeah.
home.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because I know kids that come from homes, one's a doctor, one's a drug addict, and they lived in the same home under the same
Yeah.
rule. And so, like, parents, like, I just can't encourage you enough to know that a lot of the things that your children turn out to be, you may influence in a way, but at the end of the day, their decisions is what makes them
That's right.
who
Yeah.
they are. And so a lot of times parents have a hard time with these situations because of the guilt and shame. And let's be honest, any parent that looks back that don't think they could do something different is lying.
Right.
So every parent could look back and put a microscope
Analyze
under
it,
it
yeah.
and beat themselves up. And
Yeah.
at the end of the day, parents do the best they can.
Yeah.
A lot of times they can't do what they weren't taught to do.
That's right.
You know, and so when you get 50 and you look back at what you would have did as a parent differently 30 and 40, if it ain't different, then you ain't growing.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, so I think a lot of moms and dads just need to hear that, you know, your children make decisions,
Yeah.
and that's really what brings the reality of their life,
Right.
you know? And so I think majority of parents, not all parents, but majority of parents really do the best they can, and they
Yeah.
do a great job, you
Yeah.
know?
Right. Yeah.
So keep telling us. So you get to high school, and I love what you said. I feel like relationships was really my first addiction. And a lot of people don't talk about it. I talk about it a lot because I've had some horrific pain that's come from it in addiction and in recovery. And I think that the hardest thing to detox from is our souls from a toxic relationship.
Right.
And it's
Absolutely.
easy as somebody in high school who feels the way we feel in our own skin
Right.
to let somebody look at us.
Yep.
And they good looking.
Yep.
And I get that fuzzy feeling, I think.
This is
It's
it.
the same thing alcohol does.
It's the same
bro.
thing.
It releases that dopamine, and I'm like, that's
Yep.
it.
It's the same
And we
thing.
chase it.
Yep.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, did this guy do drugs and drink?
Yeah.
And so, is this where your drinking and drugging escalated?
Yeah, it did. And another thing, you know, because then I started like lying. I was lying about, you know, the abuse. My parents were asking me about like the bruises, you know, and so I started lying about that. And then, you
So
know,
he was hitting you, and you were having to lie to your parents.
yeah.
Would you say that's where our character defects begin to
They're
develop in our
born.
life?
That's where they're
Right.
born at,
Yeah.
man. That
Yeah.
dishonesty starts.
Right.
Well, like
There.
this guy is somebody I've put in my life to meet needs. Well, my dad finds out he's beat me, then he's going to make me have to get away from this relationship. So a character defect would be lying because while I can take these blows, like I don't want to lose him.
That's
And
right.
though that's sick, we know that's not proper thinking.
Right.
It's our reality.
Yep.
Right.
And so we got to lie.
Yep.
That's where that comes from.
Yep.
Right. Yeah. So one thing that I like to talk about is so I was 16, got a car, and the rule was we couldn't leave Orlando. So my friends were going to Cocoa Beach, and thank goodness there wasn't Live 360 back then because I was in trouble.
You'd have been in trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm like, let's go. I'll drive to the beach. So I'm going down the 528. It was at night. It was raining, and a car cut me off, and I spun out, hit the guardrail from the front, spun around, hit it in the back, and like totaled my car on the 528. So I'm like 30 minutes away. And my first thought was, I got to get back to Orlando. Like
So
my
my parents don't know
So
that
my
I'm
parents don't know that I
outside
left.
of here.
Yeah.
So I putt-putted, like my car wouldn't go over 20, back to Orlando, found a guardrail in Orlando, and ran into it.
Solid.
Let's go.
That's a solid move. I'm just saying, like,
Right?
that's
Normal people don't think
no,
like that.
they don't.
No, they don't. But that's why I think that we are the extreme example
Right.
of self-will.
That's right.
Right.
And like we're we're the director.
Yeah.
Right.
Right? And like we got a lot of things we're putting in our life that we
Yeah.
need to sustain.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like you think about the consequences that come with her parents finding that she's outside of Orlando.
Yep.
Right.
That gets in the way of her having mobility to get to the relationship.
Yep.
You know what I'm saying? And so like we got this idea in our head and if it's gonna get done, we gotta do it.
Yeah.
Make it happen.
And so you know what? We putting like
Yeah.
Fred Flintstone
That sounds
all the
like-
way back to
God.
Orlando.
That sounds like something I would do. No trouble.
And how
Yes.
convinced were they?
My dad was like scratching his head because the road that I chose, the guardrail, was like 30 miles per hour. And he was like, how is your car so damn, how fast were you going? And
Yeah.
I was like, I don't know. It just happened so fast, but it was crazy. But I needed my car paint to get on that guardrail. I lined it up. Now they know, obviously. And he was like, I knew it. Like, I
Yeah,
knew
there's
that.
no way.
But we make our parents think they crazy.
Yeah, we
Right.
do.
Right.
Yes.
Because here's the truth most people don't talk about is our addiction affects our parents.
Yeah.
Right.
Like it's a family
Yeah.
illness.
Right.
And so like I could imagine that the times that my dad had common sense
Yeah.
that was easily pushed out because of my lying and manipulation where he thought, I'm going crazy.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
Right.
And it's
Right.
amazing how our addiction really places our parents to be codependent
Mm-hmm.
Right.
on
Yeah.
us to really let their priorities or their principles, they jeopardize those to try to save
Yeah.
us.
Yeah.
And they don't do it intentionally.
Right.
It just happens over time. When you live with an addict, I'm
Yeah.
telling you, it
Yeah.
just happens over time and then you find yourself powerless and you can't fix it's just man,
Right.
it's
Nightmare.
one of the most horrific illnesses that could ever hit a family.
Yeah.
Right.
And we don't talk enough about it.
Yeah.
And that's why we have these conversations to enlighten people on the effects of addiction, but also that there is a solution, you know?
Right.
Yes.
So you get back to Orlando, you call your dad, he comes out. So tell us what goes on from there.
So I end up getting pregnant whenever I was 17 years old.
Same guy? Okay.
Yep. So, my parents hated him. So then, they didn't even know I was having sex. So then I have to come out and tell them, like, I'm pregnant. And I
And
remember
how old were you?
I was 17.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had my first child at 17 too. So I know, kids having kids,
yeah.
it's really tough, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Yeah.
And
I was 18 when I had her. I was a senior in high school, so I was pregnant half of my senior year, and I graduated like 6 months pregnant. And my parents were just devastated, right?
Mm-hmm.
well, because let's be honest, we don't, even now where we are, we don't want our kids to do what we did.
Right.
And so while they've probably made mistakes, they never envisioned our kids or their kids to probably, it's just the pain of knowing that our decisions has made us have to be at a place where life is about to be different forever,
Right. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So I had my daughter, and I stayed sober throughout the pregnancy. Like I didn't drink, I didn't smoke. I was able to stay sober. Had her, moved out with him. She was a couple months old, and that's just when it all went downhill.
Spiraled.
Mm-hmm.
Fast. Yeah. Fast. There was times I was drinking heavily, right? Because that's just how I coped.
Yeah.
And the abuse, there was a point where I called my dad and I was like, you got to get me out. So he came, got me out. I went back home, filed a restraining order on him, went to court. They said that they were going to put him on child support. So I felt bad for him and I dropped the restraining order and I moved back in.
Yeah.
I moved back in.
Yeah.
And I know like my parents were like, what is she doing? But it's just, I don't know. It was crazy. So I ended up going, I graduated high school I did well in school. So I wanted to go to nursing school. That is my passion. That's what I wanted to do. And we ended up moving into my sister's house. So they had a house out in Apopka. and they moved to they live in Texas, so they moved to Texas, so they needed to rent the house out. It was whenever like the economy was super bad, so they rented the house out, which was a nightmare. I wish I would have never done that. And that is when I was introduced to Oxy. And then, yeah.
How old were you here?
Probably 20.
It's probably late
Yeah.
2000s.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So when you say Oxy, you mean Oxycontin or Percocet?
The first thing I did was oxycodone.
Oh, yeah.
Was the first
Which
thing
is a
that I did.
Percocet.
Yeah.
But back
Yeah.
in our day, how old are you,
Yeah.
Katie?
I'm 39.
So she's my age. So right around that time was when Oxycontin was really
Yeah.
pretty prevalent too.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, there's nothing like an oxycodone to change your life.
Chain. Like, and it wasn't even prescribed to me. It was my daughter's father had a hernia surgery, and he was prescribed it, and he's like, here, try it. So I was like, okay. So I tried it, and I did it every day after that.
So did you
Every
get
day.
sick when you first took them or
Yep.
no? So it did me that way.
Yeah.
But why do we keep taking
I
them?
don't know. I don't
It's like
know.
I'm white as a ghost. I want
Yeah.
to throw up. This is terrible. I'm never
is-
going to do this again.
Yeah.
And then to wake up the next day
Right.
and the reality of the uncomfortability is still there. So let's try it again.
Yep.
And then one day,
Yeah.
I don't know what happened,
Yeah.
but I think I fell in love.
100%.
Sounds like you did too.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
So tell us how that progressed. So, you find opiates and you start taking them every day. What did that progress to?
It was awful. So it got to a point to where I couldn't even go to nursing school. Like I tried, I couldn't. There was days where I couldn't even take my
Just
daughter
dope
to school.
sick?
Yeah, yeah.
Just not having the
Yeah,
ability to
yeah,
get the pills?
Yeah, And then that's when it started. I mean, the pill mills were real big in Florida. So, I mean, I was doctor shopping up and down the state of Florida. I had, I don't know, 3, 4 doctors. I drove down to Miami to get out, like it was crazy. They had I remember they had like a pool table in the doctor's office. Like people were shooting pool, waiting to see the doctor.
Waiting to see the doc, yeah.
Crazy.
Drug dealers.
Yes.
It's not just on TV, folks. Like, this really happened.
This really happened. I lived it. So, and then also I got real bad on Xanax. Like it was oxycodone and Xanax, and I was like, I could not stop. So my ex's parents knew. They know like his mom's an addict and his dad was an alcoholic. He passed, but so they knew. So they got with my parents, and they're like, something's going on with them, and like my parent. I am the only like living alcoholic, but I do feel like the black sheep of the family. So like my parents didn't know what to do with me. So they did their first like mini intervention on me. And, at this time when they did their first mini intervention, okay, so when I was in nursing school, my mom always told me like, we can help you out financially as long as you're going to nursing school. So I just kept taking checks from her and like you never used it towards school.
Yeah.
So I just use it. It went
Towards
all,
getting pills. Yeah.
That's all it went towards. And then I was telling her it was to help to pay rent, my sister rent. And then my sister, talked to my mom, and she's like, what's going on with Katie?
She ain't
hasn't
paid rent
Yeah.
months.
And she's like, what? I've
Yeah.
been giving her money, So my sister kicked us out. And so I ended up moving close by my parents. It's literally like it's so crazy. I drive right, past that street every day almost. And when we went to that house, like that's when it got like super dark. So that's when they first did their mini intervention on me. Like it was just my dad. That's why I say mini. It was just my dad. And I wasn't ready, right? I was super angry. I'm like, I don't have a problem.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem, but I'll go. So I went to this like 5-day detox, and it was like co-ed, and I was just, I remember 4th of July weekend was coming up. I'm like, I got to get out.
In and out.
Yeah.
I got to
in
get
and
out.
out.
I got to
Yeah.
get out. So that's what I did. I did 5 days, and I got right back out. And then it got to a point to, I started. I was an IV user. Like I remember telling myself like, I'll never shoot dope.
Mm-hmm.
Never shoot dope. But I remember we had Dilaudids, and I didn't know. And we had a friend that said, "Oh, all you got to do is shoot them." And then that introduced me
That's
to
a
the
all
game
needle.
she wrote.
changer.
Yeah.
Yep, that introduced me to the needle.
Yeah.
And I was shooting everything.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, after that, somebody called DCF. So, I remember we were, we had pills, we had prescriptions, but we were selling them because we're trying to get, which made no
Yeah.
sense, right?
Yeah.
You
It
were
made
selling
no
the
sense.
pain pills now to get heroin?
No, just to sell to get money for food.
for
yeah,
food,
for food.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for food. So they came and our like prescriptions were like super off. I remember there being like weed, paraphernalia and stuff like that. I remember them going in the back and talking. I mean, they came at like 10 o'clock at night, and talking to my daughter, in the room, and it was just like the house. I mean, there was no food in there. They had every right to take her, and like I'll never forget it. The day that they took her, they told us like you have a 9-month case plan, and I couldn't do it. Like I couldn't do it as much as I wanted to fight for her. Like I remember showing up with the caseworker, like, and doing a drug test. I don't even know why. But luckily, like it was like it didn't work, So she's like, "We'll meet again," and I just like I couldn't. So when I lost custody of my daughter, when DCF took her like that, I was on a suicide mission. Like I'm like, y'all took the one thing,
Yeah.
y'all messed up,
Yeah.
But like so grateful that she was taken, and I didn't pull her down. You know what I mean? I can't. She already saw enough. She was 7, I think,
Yeah.
whenever DCF got involved. So she's got memories. But so, got evicted from the place that we were staying in, and at this point, like I had so much hatred towards him, right? Like I hated this dude. Wanted nothing to do with him. And so we ended up moving into our dealer's house and lived there. And like I went off the grid with my parents. Like it got to a point to where they wouldn't even let me talk to her because I wasn't consistent with the phone calls. Like I'm like, I'll call. So they're like, you can't until you get sober. Like you can't have anything to do with her. So moved in with this dealer, and a very important part of my story is there was a point to where I couldn't even walk out of nowhere. Like couldn't walk, had the worst back pain ever. And it took me like a month to even go get checked. So like I remember even my dealer was like, "You're looking like yellow," and I'm like, "I'll be all right." I just couldn't walk. I was laid up on the couch and stuff. And then my ex's mom ended up coming, and she's like, "You need to go to detox." So I was like, "Okay, fine.
Yeah.
I'll go to detox." And like I should have gone straight to the hospital. So
Yeah.
I went to detox. In the meantime, I had been in and out of detox. I would go to detox to just regroup, right? Like I would go to sleep, eat. I remember calling my parents, "I'm in detox," and they're like, "Okay." Like,
Yeah.
like it don't mean nothing until we see what you do when you get out. So I was in detox, and like I couldn't. I was like 23, 24 years old in detox with a walker. Like I couldn't walk. And so they couldn't help me. I had a fever, so they took me to the hospital. So I ended up having MRSA in my spinal fluid.
Wow.
And they told me if I would have waited 3 days, it would have gone to
you'd
my
been
heart and
dead.
killed me.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's nothing to play with.
So I had the surgery, and since I came from detox, right, they knew I was an addict. And I remember being on the morphine drip after surgery. First of all, I remember having the surgery and like waking up from the anesthesia, panic, because I'm like, I'm not asleep. I'm not, because I thought my tolerance was so high
Yeah.
that the anesthesia didn't put me to sleep. They're like, "We're already done with the
Yeah.
surgery." So I was like, "Okay." So thank God.
Yeah.
Right?
more, need
Thank
more.
God.
Hold on. Yeah.
So I'm on this morphine drip, and you know how you can press a button to release it. And I remember this nurse coming in, and he was like, listen, there ain't enough morphine in this hospital to suffice you. Like, it's just because it beat alarms if you
Yeah.
hit it too soon.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying that to me, and I was like offended, like, what?
Yeah.
You know?
Who
How
are you?
dare you?
Yeah, how dare you?
You
Yeah.
don't know me.
You don't know how much
Yeah.
morphine I can take.
Yeah. So, since I came from detox, they put it that I couldn't have any opiates. So that didn't work for me, right? So they were giving me ibuprofen. So I called that dealer that I was staying with, and I said, I need you to help me. I need you to bring me something. So he did. And I remember him telling me, like, if this kills you, like if you die from, these pills, like I'm not going to give you like a proper burial. Like your parents won't be able to find you, like I had my own dealer telling me that.
Mm-hmm.
And so the nurse knew right, ibuprofen. I shouldn't have been looking like I was on ibuprofen.
Sure, for
Yeah.
sure.
So they told me that I was going to have a 24-hour babysitter. And I said, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah.
Like you're not going to babysit me. I was supposed to be on a 10-day IV antibiotic, and I was only there for 5 days. And I said, I'm going to leave. And so I'll never forget it. I remember the nurse running in my room, panicked, with my mom on the phone. And she's like, here, like, you have to talk to her. She like begged my mom to talk me into staying. And like, I remember the nurse being more concerned about my life than me. Like, I'm calming the nurse down. I'm like, it's okay. I'm just going to go to a different hospital. Like, it's okay. You
Yeah.
know, like it didn't, like, death did not scare me. I just didn't think it was going to happen. So I left against medical advice. I had a stent in my arm that was pumping I tried to leave with that in my arm because I thought it was a perfect like port, right?
Yeah.
Instead of the needle.
Easy access.
They had to chase me. They caught me at the elevator.
Yeah.
To get it
Could
out.
you imagine
Yeah.
if I left with that in my
Yeah.
arm?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Crazy. So
You wouldn't be sitting here. There's no doubt.
no, I wouldn't be sitting here. So it is an absolute miracle. I never went back to the hospital, that I survived that MRSA on 5-day antibiotics. I was supposed to be on 10-day IV
Yeah.
and then 6 weeks antibiotics after that. And I only did 5 days. So it is a miracle.
Yeah.
So I
That's
went
crazy.
right back. I ended up moving in with, okay, so we're staying with somebody else. We got into a really bad altercation, and luckily at that moment I was able to get out. I went to go stay with another friend that was a dealer, and he owed her a bunch of money, so like he stayed away, and that was like my out. So I'm staying with her. And
This guy is still the father of your daughter.
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were together like 10 years, yeah. So finally like broke through with him, and I know, like, I feel like at that time my parents like blamed him for my addiction, and then they realized that it wasn't him when he was gone,
Yeah.
right? Like I was still out. So I think I went like 2 years, maybe like a year and a half without like any contact with my daughter. So I'm staying with this girl, and she ended up getting me off the needle, and I started going to the methadone clinic because she said, I need to be able to trust you with my stuff. And if you go to the methadone clinic, I don't have to worry about you, stealing. So luckily that got me off the needle. Like I never thought I would be able to stop, shooting dope. So I started going to the methadone clinic, which is even worse,
Yeah.
It's just a supplement. So
Yeah.
Did you do methadone or Suboxone?
Suboxone.
Yeah.
Yeah. Fortunately, I never did methadone. But Suboxone wasn't no joke either.
yeah. So going to the methadone clinic and still heavily on Xanax. Like, I don't know how that combination didn't kill me. I mean, I was taking 20
It
Xanax a
should've.
day.
Yeah.
20s. I was like operating on Xanax.
Yeah. Sounds like my sister.
Yeah. Yeah.
Off the chain.
Off the chain. So it got to a point, it was like I felt like I was coming to the end. So in the meantime, also, like, I was in and out of jail, and like you shared in the beginning, they offer AA meetings in jail, And this lady came in and told her story and like planted that seed for me. Like at the time I thought my parents like paid her to come in, you know, like, and I'm like,
How
no,
did
I'm
she
not
know?
How does she know?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah,
I
or why
related-
else would
Yeah.
she come anyway
Yeah.
to help
Right.
people like us?
Yeah.
Right. And
We don't get that.
No, I related to her so much. So that's definitely when the seed was planted for me. So the final day, okay, so at this time, I stopped going to the methadone clinic, which is very important. So I was going to detox myself, right? So I was just buying them on the streets, but I was doing the same amount.
Yeah.
But I, you know, in my mind, I'm like, I'm good. I'm not going, you know, to the methadone clinic, but doing the same amount. I go to my daughter's school because I wanted to see her, and her PE teacher was mine. And so I'm just standing outside by the fence, and her teacher came up to me and she's like, you know, she's not outside right now. She's like, but you need to go talk to your parents. So I was like, okay. So I drove to my parents' house, and I remember it was just my dad there. And I'm like, will you just show me pictures of her? Like, I just want to see pictures of her. So he showed me pictures of her, and like, you know, he'll say to this day, like when he like looked me in the eyes, it was like nothing was there. Like nothing,
Yeah.
like empty,
Soulless.
soulless.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I remember him asking me like, are you trapped? And I was like, no, you know, like, no, I'm good. So I am on probation. First charge I got was grand theft. I was stealing TVs from Walmart.
Yes, sir. They're not gonna see me.
Yeah. They don't see me.
Insane.
Just gonna leave here with this
That's
60-inch.
I mean, let's go.
Nothing to see here.
And so
Better
that-
than boosting meat, you know? Do you remember that?
I did.
You did boost meat too?
Yeah,
Oh, we knew nothing about that.
Really? Yeah. I used to do it when Dixie. I used to trade meat with my dealer for pills. Yeah.
Shout out to Ito Robles. Did you hear that story when we did it in the beginning of this season where Ito came on and he talked about how he was the meat plug? He would literally sell meat for drugs,
Yeah.
or he would sell meat like you would sell drugs.
Right. Right.
That was
And
Right.
deodorant.
yeah.
and
and
deodorant.
He would
yeah.
steal deodorant.
Yeah.
that's crazy.
Yeah, I was the TV girl, and then I also started. It was just wild because one day I went into Lowe's, and they had these electric grills that were like smaller, but they were like $250. So I started literally this like whole operation at Lowe's, getting the grills and exchanging them at different Lowe's or whatever, and getting the Lowe's card and then selling it to the dealer for half price or
yeah.
whatever. I started this whole thing. I mean, there was a girl that looked like me that got stopped. They tried to arrest her in Lowe's. She's like,
That's
That's
tough.
not Katie.
Yeah.
You got the
Yeah.
wrong
you
one.
got the wrong
Yeah.
one. Yeah, just a hot mess. So yeah, so I leave my parents. I go back to where I was staying, and the cops come. You know, like they were known, and you know they asked to talk to me. I know, I don't know. I remember they were looking for me, but I can't even remember why. So they searched my purse, and I had Xanax in it, just loose Xanax or whatever. So I was on probation for possession. I was in a couple raids, you know. I remember going to jail in one of the raids for possession. So I was on probation for that, and so I violated probation with the new charge. So they arrested me, and so I was arrested May 9th, 2013. So that's why I consider May 10th, because that's that's when the work
Yeah,
started.
yeah.
Oh, and they don't really care if you
Yeah.
detox in jail much.
Right. So that's what I said. So in Orange County, once you're arrested, if you go to the methadone clinic and they have that documented, then they take you to the methadone clinic in jail. So that is
But you
a
didn't have it.
miracle. Yes.
So
Yeah.
because you quit going,
I could-
you had no documentation, so they
Right.
couldn't take you.
Nope.
That saved your life.
saved my life.
Yep.
Saved my life. So I remember when you violate probation, you go to court faster. So I was like excited about that, not thinking that I had to stay. So I went to court, and I remember the judge was like, "Oh," he was like, "It looks like you like to hang out in trap houses," you know? And I was like, "What?" And my probation officer, because I figured out a way to pass the test for, I think I was on probation a year and a half. I passed every drug test. And my probation officer wrote a letter and said, she is a drug addict. Do not reinstate her probation. And that saved my life, you know.
Wow.
Like, yeah.
But
I was
they
like, how
know.
did he know?
Like they know. Like
He knows. He knew who I was staying with. We all had the same probation officer. Yeah.
how would they know?
Yeah.
They'll know.
Yeah. But that saved my life too, not reinstating my probation. So I had to sit. So my first offer was 8 months. And I was like, no way. I said, it's a possession charge. I'm not taking it. So I had to wait like a month. I went back to court. They said your next offer is 51 weeks. I was like, I'll take the 8 months.
Yeah.
I'll take it. I'll take it. But that detox in jail is what saved my life. Like I thought I was going to die. They check your blood pressure and give you ibuprofen. But that, like, I mean, I was shaking so bad. I couldn't even carry my tray to the table. You know, I had to have the trustee carry the tray. I could even sign. They wanted me to sign something. And they had to come back because I could not even sign. My hands were shaking so bad. I'll never forget it. I was sick. In jail, they have, like, if you're detoxing, they give you, like, more food, but I couldn't eat.
Yeah.
And the girls were mad. I'm like, y'all can have it.
Yeah.
You know, you can have my food. Like, I couldn't eat. I probably didn't sleep for a month. I think that was a detox from the Xanax. You know, I couldn't.
Them Xanaxes, God.
Yeah.
That's the worst thing I've seen people kick. Man. It'll kill you.
Yeah.
It will kill you.
It just suppresses your nervous system so much.
Right.
God.
Right. Yeah. So, I start.
So did you stay in county for 8 months?
6?
6.
I did 6 on 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did 6 on 8. I ended up doing trustee. I needed to do something with my time. I was going crazy. So I ended up working the night shifts, and then I would sleep during the day. But I remember my dad coming to see me, and he was like, you need to go to treatment. And I'm like, no, like, this is my treatment. I'm sober.
Yeah.
I earned this, you know, like, I fought for this, like, and I'll never forget it. Like, whenever the drugs wore off, the emotions, like I like literally suffocated me, like, because I had numbed for so long. He was talking about treatment, and I wasn't sure, you know. I'm like, I don't think so, you know. Like, I met a girl in there. I'm like, she said I can come stay with her and her boyfriend. You know?
Such a great idea.
You know, my poor parents. So he said, if you don't go to treatment, you can't have any. My daughter's name is Savannah. He said, you can't have anything to do with her. So that is what motivated me. So I started thinking about it. You know, I was going to the meetings. I had them on Sundays and worked the step by myself. You know, like I won and jumped to 9, and I started writing amends to my family.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. That's fantastic.
And
You were such a good sponsor.
I know.
Yeah,
I
you
did
were.
great. I did great. So I wrote, like, to my sisters, and I still have them. Like, I have, you know, a lot of my jail mail, and I have the letter. My sister's like, I don't care that you're in jail. I want to see what you do when you get out. Like, your sorries no longer mean anything to me. Like, your words are nothing. You know, it was a hard pill to swallow. So, I mean, it is very important why the steps are in the order that they are, right? And led by a sponsor. So,
Other than yourself.
Yeah.
other than myself. So, so I start, you know, I'm very self-centered. And so I'm like, all right, y'all want me to go to treatment? It's got to be on the beach, you know, because I remember a guy that I used with, he said he went to treatment and, like, rode horses. And I
Yeah.
always wanted to do that, you
Yeah.
know? So I was
That's
like,
what we need, some horse therapy.
Some equine therapy.
yes.
Yeah, what they call that?
Some equine.
What, equestrian?
Equestrian. We sent our guys out there one day.
Yeah, we did.
They was like,
Yeah.
you sent me out
We
here.
did. Yep.
Yeah.
But they inquired the 12 steps with it. It was the weirdest
It was
thing.
out in Belton.
Really?
Yeah.
It was, out in Belton, somewhere near Salon, they would go out.
Yeah.
They would do this horse therapy, but they would implement the principles of the 12 steps.
Wow.
I mean, I'm not sure if any of those guys are still sober, but
Well, I remember
That's what
I
I was
did,
looking
but on a serious note, I remember when they first went, you you picked a horse, and they would walk the horse around, get to know the horse, and as the times went, eventually the last day you got to ride the horse. That's what it ended up being. But they did incorporate the steps there.
Yeah, interesting. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, so that was my goal.
So it does exist.
Yeah,
Yeah.
good to know. So they said they did find one on the beach, but it was 18 months. I was like, that's too long.
Yeah,
I
that's
can't do that. I
yeah,
can't do
nah,
that.
yeah.
Yeah, I'll give you 3 months is
Yeah.
what I told
Tops.
them. Tops.
Yeah.
And I told him it's got to be out of the state of Florida because
Yeah.
I knew I would run, right? So I'm like, it's got to be out of this, it's got to be out of the state. So my poor parents are trying to find this perfect treatment center for me. And at my church, I go to Discovery Church in Orlando, and they have this group that's called Hope for Hurting Parents. And so my mom was in contact with this lady, and she said, my son goes to New Spring, and they sponsor something with Shalom, a treatment center in Shalom. It's in Belton, Anderson, or whatever. So they were trying to figure out, like how they could come look at it. And so my aunt lives in Augusta. And so she happened to call my mom like that day and was like, just checking on Katie, what's going on? She's like, well, we found a treatment center in Anderson. And my aunt's like, I'm literally in Anderson right now, going to my grandson's basketball game. Like, I'll stop by and look at it. And I just love it. Like those unexplainable things.
Yeah, you can't explain that.
You can't.
Yeah.
So
That's
yeah. So,
That's like steps being ordered
Yes.
by the Lord.
Yes.
yeah.
It's crazy.
Making a way.
Yes. Making
Yeah.
a way. So, my aunt came and looked at it, thought it was really nice. So my mom called and they're like, we got to do a phone interview with her. And she was like, well, she's in jail, So luckily, she knew somebody that was like a chaplain. So they were able to pull me out, and I did a phone interview with Shalom. And I was released on a Friday, and they couldn't take me till Monday because they had a reunion. I came 11 years ago.
This weekend.
Yeah.
How
That's
about that?
crazy.
Yeah. So, I remember telling my parents, when I'm released, you have to be in that parking lot. Like, you have to be there as soon as I'm released because I may not go with you. I'll make one other phone call, come get me. So my parents are stressed, trying to make sure that they're there. They're dropping my daughter off at school, not telling her, they didn't tell her. They just said that mom's not well. She's sick.
Yeah.
So they came, they picked me up, and they took me out of the state. They do have a house in North Carolina, Franklin. So they took me there for the weekend, but I know they were stressed. Like, what are we going to do with her for a weekend? And it's my dad. My dad's birthday is on October 13th. So he always tells me that this is like the best birthday present, that whenever I went to treatment. So I committed to 3 months. So I went to Shalom on a Monday and was just scared. Right. For me, it was like a culture shock, like I grew up in the city.
And you out in the boondocks.
In Belton,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
So
That's crazy.
I know. I remember being like scared, but in my mind, I was like, I can't run, like I'm too far away. I can't run. So went there, and at the time I did tell him I didn't want faith-based, right? Because I thought the God that I grew up with was judgmental, mad at me. I'm a horrible person. I've done all these things wrong. So I told him I didn't want it faith-based, but it is, they just left that part out. Until we were reciting Bible verses, I was like, they got me.
Yeah.
Got you.
Hook, line, sinker.
Yes, they
Yeah.
did.
Yeah.
Too
so-
much information.
Yeah.
Right. Well, I think I was there. It was like the first week. Y'all had a Halloween party at Street Church.
Oh, wow.
Y'all did like a carnival outside or something.
Yes,
I
it
don't
was
even
like
know if you remember.
Yeah, because we had the pony out there, and my
Yeah.
son was riding the pony.
Yeah.
This was 2013.
Yeah.
It was.
It was 2013.
So we had a big event, and the whole community could come, play games, eat,
Right.
and all that good stuff.
Yep. So they brought us there to that. And then they would bring us, what was it, a Friday service?
Yeah, Friday night
Yeah,
service.
Friday
Yep.
night service. So that's where I feel like I rededicated my life to Jesus.
How about that?
Yeah.
Street church.
And it was huge, like I told you. Then I saw you at a AA meeting fellowship. I saw you and I'm like, that's a pastor. He's in an AA meeting. You know, like that was huge
Yeah.
for me. I was like, there's somebody in the church that's like me.
Yeah.
And that was so huge for me. And, you know, I just was able to build this amazing relationship with Jesus, like at Shalom, and grateful that they, you know, at the time they did take us to meetings. They took us to AA and NA. They took us to church. I like that they take us to different denominations. You
Yeah.
know, they don't stick with one. I really liked New Spring. So 3 months was coming up. They brought so the first month they brought my daughter to come see me.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And that was so huge, you know, because you know, they told me, okay, so I don't think, and I left out this part. So I ended up having to sign my rights over to my daughter because I couldn't do the 9-month case plan. And I remember even trying to miss that court date. Like somebody had to come get me because I just thought if I wasn't there, it wasn't real.
Yeah.
So I remember just I was just so angry, you know, but I remember on that day, my parents told me, like, if you ever get sober, it's just paperwork. Like you can raise, we are not trying to raise your daughter.
Yeah.
We don't want this,
Yeah.
you know, they wanted to be grandparents.
Yeah.
So, they brought her to come see me, you know, right? She's got a ton of questions, like, where's my dad? You know, all that stuff. And I'm like, you know, we split ways, you know, a year and a half ago. So like, I don't know. But for me, that was like huge motivation to keep pushing. And you know, what do they say? Like our kids can't get us sober and they can't keep us sober. Like I believe that, but she is a huge motivation, has been.
They say it's a damn good reason
Yeah.
to
Right.
get sober.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, you can't do it for them,
Right.
but I've always known, man, kids are the greatest motivation because they need their mama
Yeah.
or their
Right.
daddy.
Right.
Yep.
You know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I ended up staying 6 months. The second 3 months is like codependency, which I obviously needed. And we do steps on that. So that like introduced me to the steps. So my 6 months is coming up. So my parents are like, you know, what do you want to do? They do have a halfway house here, but I'm like, I didn't get sober to not be in her life. Like I want to come back to Orlando. And I know that scared them to death.
Yeah.
People are like, I can't believe you live where you know, like it's crazy. Like I still get that like pit in my stomach when I drive down certain streets. But yeah, so they offered for me to come stay with them, but I'm like, no. So like I wanted to stay in a halfway house because like I was able to stay sober in jail and in treatment, right?
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah.
I needed to know I could stay sober like on my own. So I went to a halfway house so I could have that accountability
In Orlando.
in Orlando. Yeah, I stayed it's called the Glass House. So I had a weekend away. I looked at 2 halfway houses in Orlando. So I picked this one. It's like in downtown Orlando, and it's a block away from my home group. So I needed that accountability. I needed to be shown how to live life sober. I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to.
Yeah.
So got there. My first meeting, I asked the lady who was chairing if she could sponsor me, but she had like 18 sponsees, something crazy. So she pointed me in the right direction, and the sponsor that I asked is still my sponsor to this day.
How about that?
Yeah, she's been my sponsor ever since. And I needed somebody I could relate with, you know. She has children, did the same thing. You know what I mean? I needed.
Yeah.
I just
identification,
thought, right?
for
Like
sure.
I thought there was nobody that gave up their children,
Yeah.
right? That's why I didn't think I could live with that thought sober. Like I didn't think.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what cut me out. Like who just signs their children away, right?
Yeah.
So I was staying in the halfway house. I was able to start spending time with my daughter, going to meetings. I lived at my home group. I was luckily able to get a job. I was cleaning houses for $10 an hour. Like I just needed something
do something.
to pay my rent. Yep,
Yeah.
I needed to pay my rent.
Yep.
So I did that and was able to spend time with her like on the weekends. I couldn't stay out. And then ended up getting another job doing catering. Like my life progressed, you know, in a great way. And my sponsor, she had a place. I was at the halfway house like 9 months, but I felt like ready. Like when I look back at my story, I can see where God just like opened doors for me.
Yeah.
So she had this cute little 1 bedroom that she was moving out of, and it was affordable. So like I moved in there, and then that's when my daughter could come stay with me. It was hard for me at first because my mom was like her safe place, right? So like I
Took a while for that transition for her,
Yeah.
like
which is okay.
right,
But we don't like it because we want it now.
right.
But we've learned that forgiveness has barriers, and some of the things we inflict on people are not a scratch. They're like broken bones.
Yeah.
Right.
And where we may heal quickly, some don't.
Yep.
And that's a hard thing to do in a relationship, learning to be consistent while they heal
Figure it
and
out.
deal with whatever they're
Yep.
dealing with, you know?
Right.
I could imagine that was really hard.
Right. Yeah, it was so hard because I'm like, I didn't get so like.
I'm your mama.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I mean, it was hard, but like I grew through that
Yeah.
pain. Just staying vigilant and then doing the next right thing. I'm like I just gotta keep doing the next right thing. Like it's all gonna fall into place. So after that, in the meantime, I met Ernie. He was at a halfway house. We were both at halfway houses together. It's the men's. He's on the board for it now. But I remember meeting him, and he was straight out of prison, and I was like sold.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's the guy, bro.
I want you. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's our story, man.
Yeah.
We are attracted to certain people.
Yep.
man.
Right. Yeah.
know?
But it's like I knew. Like I just knew we were both a year sober, thank goodness. But luckily we just were able to like take it slow. I will say, I remember testing his anger to see if he had, an
That
abusive
switch.
side.
Yeah.
To see if he had, an abusive
Well, that
side.
scared you.
Yeah. So that's what I mean, because he's a great guy, but I'm like, great guys don't exist. So I'm gonna see what button it is that I gotta push.
Yeah.
Never found that button.
Never found it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Never found it. So we end up getting engaged. And then it's such a blessing. So there's a house that came up for rent on the street of my parents. This lady like lived there for like 12 years and she was moving out. So we got like first dibs on it. So we ended up moving literally across the street from my parents. So that is so important to me because I feel like that it gave my daughter the opportunity to work her way towards me in her time.
Yeah.
Instead of like, you have to come stay with me, like I would cry because she would stay at my parents and I'd be like, I'm literally across the street. Why won't she come stay with me? Like I would cry, but she just ended up in her own time, her decision, I want to move in with you.
Yeah.
Right? Because it didn't matter. We were across the street. I saw her every day, so.
Well, and don't you think that there's some fear there with her in the beginning? Is mom gonna be here? I mean, do I know this lady?
Yeah.
Right.
Right. And so thank God for the grace he gives us for these seasons to sustain.
Right.
Because let's be honest, left to our own devices, we're going to get high.
Yeah.
Right.
So when we really get to this moment of clarity and we enter into this path that's unknown to us, like there is some grace for us in these seasons of being jacked up.
Yep.
But him holding us up.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right? Because I think about, I'm in the season, my daughter don't want to be here, I'm crying. I used to shoot dope over this.
Yeah.
Right.
But I'm withstanding, feeling, dealing with it, walking through it. Like, dude, that's grace.
Yeah.
That's a miracle.
That's a miracle.
Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So, I mean, she moved in and, it was great. I was able to be, a mom to her through her teenage years, which my mom was not trying to do. Like I was there for her through hard times, good times, and was able to earn back that trust through her. Like it's been amazing.
How old is she now?
She just turned 21.
Wow. Wow.
Does she live with you or is she in college?
She's still living. Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah, she actually went to USF for a year, and she's just
This was not for her.
So she came back and she did the dental assisting program. So she's
Good for her.
She works full time as a dental assistant. She's going for dental hygiene. But
Wow.
yeah, I do think she has a healthy fear of drugs and alcohol because she's seen, you know, like what it does. She so her father, like, he tried to like come in and out of her life through my parents. And, you know, my parents did the same thing. Like, we're going to do what we did with Katie. Like, you got to get sober. You got, you know, this. And he just couldn't do it. So he waited till she was 18 and then kind of slid in there. So, I mean, she talked to him over text for about a year. And then she just saw him for the first time, like, after 12 years. But she knows, luckily she's at the age to where she knows, like, he's not sober, you know. So that's why I keep telling her, like, you're not going to get consistency, you're not going to get healthy behavior.
You can't
know?
put your heart in that
Yeah.
hand because
Yeah.
he will break it.
Yeah, because that's what she said. I'm afraid you know, my heart's going to get hurt. I said, you have a high chance.
Yeah,
of
it
that
will.
happening.
Yeah.
And it's not really personal.
Right.
You know, it's
Right.
just the addiction
Yeah.
and the extreme grip that it has on our lives. And if you hook him up to a lie detector test, he probably is telling you the truth.
Right.
Fact is we just never been able to live up to these
Nope.
convictions.
Right.
Nope.
You know, and so it's one of those things where, you know, the greatest gift we give our children, like your story says, is I'm going to do whatever it takes to get well.
Yep.
Right.
Even if it takes me a couple years to get back consistent with my children. Like, the greatest gift I can give them is getting well, because
Yep.
you don't spend that 6 months and 9 months before you get thrown into those situations. I mean, there's a great chance that you don't maintain your sobriety.
Right.
You know, and I love what you said earlier. It just like when you said, I just got a job to pay, like, dude, that's recovery.
Yeah.
Right.
Like, I tell so many guys, like, to understand, like, money, all that stuff ain't what you need.
Right. Right.
When you can use money to you know, get what you need, get by so you can keep living, like, that's when I know guys are in a really good situation at 6 and 9 months. Is, you know, they're not trying to use the job to find identity.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, they need the money to pay their rent.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, you know, I'm trying to do this recovery thing.
Yeah.
Right.
And when you said it, just hit me like, that's the deal.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like, that's when you know a person's in a good groove in
Yep.
recovery. I think in early recovery.
Right.
And every moment, step you took, that door open, you waiting for the door to open, I feel like was monumental to where you're at today.
Right.
11 years sober.
Yeah.
Wow.
And had your daughter for that long.
Right.
Married.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah. Another thing that I want to talk about. So, like, it was important to me, like, I love service work. It was important to me to bring meetings into the jail. And that's like a huge
Orange County.
Orange County, where I was. I wanted to be where I was.
Yeah.
I mean, you got to do background check, fingerprints. You got to go through this orientation. So I did all that. It took me like 6 months to do it. And I remember the first meeting that I was supposed to go to, like, I tried to back out because I'm like, what if I have a warrant?
Yeah.
What if they keep
Yeah.
me?
And how long are you sober at this point?
Probably 4 years,
Yeah.
4 or 5 years.
Isn't that
I don't know.
crazy?
Yeah.
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 That's like being sober, caught,
Yeah.
get behind you thinking, we got to
Yeah.
hide something.
Hold up.
Yeah.
Well, there
Yep.
ain't nothing to hide.
Right.
You know, but
Yeah.
Right. It's just still,
it's our
yeah,
life.
yeah.
It's so ingrained in
Right.
us.
Yeah. Because I'm like, I don't want to get stuck. So I remember trying to back out of it. And the lady that I went with, she said, nope. She's like, you got to come. You told me you were coming. You got to come. So I was like, all right, I'll be there. And I went in and there was a girl, like, I was supposed to be there. So there was a girl that I ran with. And, you know, when she saw me, she's like, oh my God, that's Katie. You know, my maiden name is Stoops. She's like, that's Hope right there. And she just started like bawling. And that's why, like, I knew, like, I just had such a fire for bringing those meetings into the jail. Every time I went, I saw somebody I knew, right? And it was just such a beautiful thing for me. And I did it a year, and then like COVID happened. And then I went back, and then shortly after that, they called me and they said, we changed the rules. If you have more than one felony, you can't bring in meetings, and like crushed my soul, like crushed, you know, I'm like, what am I supposed to, like, I was devastated. I'm like, they don't want people who don't have records. You know what I mean?
Oh
like
yeah,
you
those
said,
are the people that they relate to.
right.
Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I just got into acceptance about it. So now I bring in meetings to detox. I also bring in meetings to a halfway house every Wednesday, and I do the detox. I will say, like, detox kind of discouraged. I don't remember going to a meeting in detox. Who knows if I did? But like, they're just so out of it.
Yeah.
But I know it's needed. So I went, and then I went and shared my story at a treatment center, and there was a girl from detox, and she's like, I remember you, and I remember you saying, like, you don't ever have to feel this way again, and that's God,
Just
right?
clicks.
Like,
Yep.
I'm like, okay, God, I hear you. I'll keep doing it. I'll
Yeah.
keep doing it. There's so many like God moments in my journey. I remember seeing a guy that I ran with. I was driving down the road. He was crossing the street, and I went to roll down my window, and my window wouldn't roll down. And I like,
That's a God
Crazy.
wink.
Yeah.
That's a God wink.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I kept going. I hit the button, and then my window went down. Like, God's like, nope,
Not today.
You don't need to talk
Not
to him.
today, Katie.
Yeah.
How about
Yeah,
that?
I know. So, the girl that I stayed with before I got arrested, she ended up passing. She OD'd, which devastated me. She was sober 3 years, got her life together. She did this whole, for the White House, she did a story about human trafficking. But like, I think you shared on one of your podcasts, like, anybody that you ran with is either like dead,
Yeah,
is
they're all dead.
That's
Most
what,
of them are dead.
yeah.
Or in prison.
Yep, same. That's what, yeah. Like, when I was arrested in 2013, that's what there was a huge operation. There was a whole operation on her that happened like 6 months after I got arrested. So like, if I didn't get arrested, I would have been in prison. Like, I'm talking time.
Yeah.
Time.
Yeah.
So super grateful for the 8 months that I got and that I got out. And like, it's just I want to stay hungry for recovery. Like, I love it. I love seeing the light go off in people's eyes. And I love this stuff. I love what you do out here. It's been such a beautiful thing. Kim, like, I'm so grateful for Shalom. I usually stay with, her name's Lib Nation. I don't know. If you
Yeah, I know
her name.
Liv. Yeah.
So I met her at Shalom. She brought in Bible studies, and I think you shared recently, like, I mean, she loved me when I couldn't love myself. I'm like, why do you even love me? Like, and I stay with her every year, but not this year because her power was out, and so she's trying to fix up her house. But I remember whenever I got out of jail, like, I had nothing. I couldn't even remember what I was wearing when I got arrested, so it was like a surprise when I had to change out, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was in slippers. So I had to walk out to my parents in slippers. I'm like, this is it. You know what I mean? Like, this is me. So luckily my sister like gave me clothes. But since it was like October, I mean, it got cold. Yeah. So I remember Miss Liv giving me a jacket because my parents couldn't get up here, to help me with like getting a jacket and stuff. So she like lent me her jacket and stuff. And it snowed, it was.
But those are things you never forget.
Right. Yeah.
Things that 11 years later, you're sitting here telling your testimony that were monumental, that are a lot of the reasons why we do it for the next person.
Yeah.
Right.
And
Right.
I found the most common thing that people have in common when it comes to getting really on fire for recovery is that they can't not help other people.
Right.
Right?
Right.
We want to be that beacon of light, which
Yeah.
you're describing that you and your family still do and continue to do.
Right.
And it's pretty cool to watch. And, I love to hear your whole story because now it brings some of the pictures I've watched you and Ernie post with your daughter
Right.
holding fish,
Right.
having her 21st birthday. Like,
Right.
that's so powerful to me because that's just a picture to some people, but that's a story God had wrote before the foundation of the world.
Right.
That because you chose to surrender your will and life to the care of God, you have now benefited from the story that God has already written. And I mean, I think the thing that the listener needs to hear is that God's grace makes up for the years the locusts have eaten.
Yeah.
And that God can do in a couple years what we couldn't in our whole lifetime.
Right.
And only God can restore your relationship with your family, with your
Right.
kids,
Right.
make you a person who becomes wife. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Right.
only God can do that. And so, I hope that your story brings hope to the listener and knowing this, you're not too far gone.
That's right.
Right.
Like there's nothing that is beyond God's ability to restore if we can just find the inkling of willingness to take one baby step.
Yep.
Right.
Like the whole time you talked about the 6 months and 9 months, and it took you this long to get. I just think about never despising small beginnings.
Right. Right.
Like it's the small steps that create the big picture.
Yep.
Right.
Like I don't think God does a big thing at once. I think he does a lot of little things that as you look back is a big thing.
Yeah.
But it was all experienced through small steps.
Right.
And a lot of those small steps, let's be honest, humbled us.
They suck.
They were very humiliating at times, and
Yeah.
we probably scratched and cussed and fussed through it. But looking back now, as people who've been through the fire, we say thank you.
Yes. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, daggone.
Yeah. Yeah.
All the way from Florida
Yep.
Yes.
or Orlando
Yeah.
to share hope, and we thank you for coming.
Yeah. Thank you.
But there's still one thing left. See?
Yep.
We got to see
All
if
right.
she's got a jump shot.
Boy. Don't y'all
Here you
let
go.
people stand up?
I'll give you some room.
You can take your headphones off. You can stand up, however you want to do it. But CJ's rigged this. Okay.
Stand up. Oh, almost. On the
Okay.
first one.
Okay. But she's gonna make this. Oh, there it is.
Hey!
Let's go.
Yes.
Katie Allman, folks. Until next time. Peace.